So welcome to the webinar for the request for proposals of the LTER Long-Term Ecological Research Network Synthesis Opportunity. Our proposal deadline is September 16th, and we're very pleased to have a sort of long run of potential cultivation of ideas over that time. For those who are not super familiar with the Long-Term Ecological Research Network, we are currently 26 sites across many different ecosystem types. It's one of the characteristics of the network that is a bit different than many other networks. We cover everything from Antarctica to the high Arctic and everything from open marine water sites to through grasslands and forests to montane locations with quite a number of coastal sites in the mix. We have 46 years of data now, not 46 years at every single site. Some are much longer than that, and some are a bit shorter. LTR data is focused primarily on 5 core areas, but those 5 core areas sort of cover a pretty broad range of ecological data. They include primary production, disturbance, movement, and transformation of organic matter, nutrient cycling, and population. So lots of biodiversity data in the species that are relevant at each site, as well as human environment interactions at many sites. Basically, we study the things that the researchers at that site think are important at that site, and that evolves a bit over the life of the particular site. The vast majority of our data is found in the Environmental Data Initiative, and the synthesis opportunity presents the opportunity to combine that data with information from, NEON, coastal zones, Ameriflux, Forest Service, USGS, USDA, and independent researchers. Many of the synthesis groups that we've hosted in the past have developed data sets that combine, 1,000. The poster child right now is our Silica Working Group, which collected data from 1,000 rivers across 7 continents. So how do we define synthesis? There's lots of potential definitions out there, but for the purposes of this opportunity, we define it as integrating the data that results from multiple studies to test novel hypotheses. So we focus on data that has been collected already, and we try and bring it together in ways that are reproducible, repeatable, and that develop novel insights through that scaling of data. The synthesis process has a lot of advantages for both the groups and the individuals that participate in it, but we survey all of our working groups, and one of the biggest ones is the chance to problem solve ideas as a group and the networking that comes out of it. Synthesis can be an amazing career builder, especially for early career researchers, but it also keeps senior researchers connected with new ideas and techniques. The papers that come out of it tend to have much higher impact. And it's a chance to bring together a set of diverse skills and perspectives. So I am always like, oh, I wish I knew how to do that. This is your chance to find somebody who's really good at that and spend a chunk of time with them, sort of getting them to share their goodies. When synthesis groups are well coordinated, it can be a big time saver. Those many hands make light work. You certainly could do many of the things that are done in synthesis working groups by yourself, but it wouldn't be nearly as much fun. A couple of recent examples of groups that have come out of LTER funding. The consumer absence generates ecological dissimilarity. They win the prize for the best acronym. The Caged Working Group has been working with consumer exclusion experiments across the LTR network and many other networks and research setups. And they're trying to understand the role of consumption and predation across ecosystem types. Fire and arid land streams works on identifying how variability in precipitation influences the effect of fire on surface waters. And from the poles to the tropics, that's the Silica Working Group that I mentioned earlier. They have brought together uh, over 1,000 stream and river data sets to understand the patterns of silica export to oceans. One of the reasons that that matters is that phytoplankton require silica, and phytoplankton are a huge carbon sink in our oceans. So what does the synthesis working group process as we carry it out at NCEAS and at LTER look like? Basically, it consists of 3 in-person working groups interspersed with periods of virtual work together. The groups are we're limiting them to about 15 people right now. What we've found over time is that gives you enough people to bring in diverse perspectives, but it doesn't leave you with a lot of kind of less productive hangers on. Um, it means that everybody stays involved in the working group, and you can have super productive conversations. Uh, it will start out with a sort of data discovery phase where you reach out to people that you think might be good partners in this working group, learn about their data, learn about their ideas, their interests, their incentives. Um, Begin to identify a technical liaison or a person who's liable to kind of be the data lead for the project. Um, do a little prep for that first meeting, and that first meeting usually is about identifying like refining your question. Um, Identifying what the data challenges are. Often people bring data sets to that first meeting and they find that they aren't either organized or weren't collected in exactly the way that you anticipated they would be. And so you'll have to make some adjustments in how you think you might combine things. Uh, Continuing to work offline in between that meeting and the next one. Typically, the meetings are about 6 to 8 months apart. Uh, the ideal timeline for a working group is about 2 years. Um, Second meeting, you'll really dig in, and many working groups by their second meeting are developing figures for papers and starting to write significant sections of their papers. And then the final working group meeting is typically both wrapping up that paper and uh, focusing on preserving the products of your work. That's the timeline for a full working group, which is what the 2026 opportunity is for. I just want to say for a minute that we also have in alternate years opportunities for a shorter working group that we refer to as SPARC. It's Scientific Peers Accelerating Research Collaboration. The idea behind SPARCs is that they're a chance to kind of vet ideas, bring them from vague topics to specific concrete questions. That's just one working group of funding and support for about a year from Nick, our data analyst. Those we expect to have an RFP out for next year. We had working groups had Spark working groups this year, and we'll have them again next year. Um, this just goes through the specific differences between full working groups and Spark working groups. The full working groups are 3 meetings. The Sparks are 1 single meeting. For full working groups, we provide analytical support throughout the whole process, and we do expect that ideas are a little more fully developed than they are for Spark working groups. Goals can be similar, although the Spark working groups focus more on the kind of early stage goals of planning and developing synthesized data sets, sometimes packages. Full working groups, we do generally expect that there will be papers or some kind of papers, proposals, or collaborative projects that come out of them. In terms of proposal topics, we mainly because LTERs collect data in the 5 core areas, we do expect that most proposals will draw on those areas, but there are plenty of other opportunities as well. So I heard mention of sort of human influence on surface waters, contaminants. While those don't strictly fall into the 5 core areas, they definitely are something that LTERs collect data on, and lots of other folks collect data on, and we would certainly be open to a proposal in that area. This year, LTR has a new strategic plan, and we are encouraging proposals to align with that strategic plan. And essentially what that means is playing to LTER's strengths. The strategic plan was built around the things that LTER is particularly unique and good at and focused on. So those are things like comparing the mechanisms of ecological change across biomes, forecasting responses to conditions that haven't been previously encountered, building partnerships to support science-based management, and I mean, just the fact of synthesis working groups really addresses the cultivating a next generation of collaborative scientists. Proposals can be submitted by individuals in academic institutions, sort of all of the standard NSF categories. The thing that is a little bit different about the synthesis working group opportunity is that we do not give money to your institution. We fund the travel and your lodging and food here at NCEAS. And as such, you don't need to go through the sponsored programs process at your own institution. You can just apply for the synthesis group, we can award it, and we will directly cover all of those expenses. The other key sort of bar that has to be met is that it must include data from at least 2 LTER sites. Generally, it will be more than that, but at least 2, and include some LTER researchers. There's no minimum bar on that, but if you've got 2 sites, you're going to have at least a couple of folks from LTER sites. We really encourage people to think deeply about the composition of your group. It makes a huge difference in how far you're able to get. And the 30+ years of experience that NCEAS and LTER have in this suggests a few categories of things that you ought to be paying attention to. So you clearly want some people with deep knowledge of the literature and the field and a broad view across the field. That often means more senior people. But You also want, and I would say in at least equal proportion, fresh eyes and novel perspectives. You want at least a few people with strong technical skills that are really familiar with data analysis. Some of the problems, the analytical problems that are encountered in synthesis can be quite challenging. So we encourage you to seek out people that have those skills. You want to pay attention to the fact that uh, there's a lot of work that goes into synthesis projects, and you want people who are able to devote some concentrated time to the project and that have an incentive to do that. In our experience, that often means postdocs or early career researchers. Um, you want to kind of pay attention to leadership skills and some people who are uh, especially good team players, good at kind of bringing out the voices that can be a little bit slow to share sometimes, and and others who are super attentive to detail and uh, and bring in kind of complementary fields to really take advantage of the opportunity to bring that many people together. Uh, Synthesis working groups are really valuable networking and career building opportunities. And so we encourage proposers to think about how to take advantage of that, how to share these opportunities with people who might not get them otherwise. It is fine to reserve spots on your working group for participants who have not yet been determined. We certainly have encountered working groups that want to do that, that want to have some sort of a proposal or a process for bringing on earlier career people. But we do encourage you, if you're going to do that, to include the nature of that process in your proposal. Um, those are kind of the big broad questions. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, does anybody have questions on that? Okay. Um, so elements of the proposal include the description, of course, which is specified in the RFP. I think it's 2,000 words. It's about 7-page total. We don't include figure titles or um, references in that. Figure captions or references. We do include a participant table. The idea here is for the reviewers to get a sense of mainly that you've thought about uh, the composition of the team and have a mix of career stages and have a majority of your team that are clearly committed to the project. In terms of data, you need to use existing LTER data from more than one site. Um, we welcome inclusion of data from other sources, and the data that you produce, the derived data coming out of the project, will typically be combined through a series of scripted analyses, must be made publicly available in compliance with the LTR network data access policy and the NC's data and information policy. So essentially, all that that says is that data should be available either through a CC BY or a CC0 license in a publicly accessible repository, unless there is a particular reason for it not to be. And those include, of course, indigenous data sovereignty, a reasonable delay until publication, although we really encourage folks to um, put the data online in an embargoed format before the working group ends, or human subjects considerations, of course. We provide data science support for the synthesis working groups. and a variety of other kinds of support. So Nick is super helpful with um, setting up collaboration tools, getting you onto, if GitHub is what you choose to use, onto GitHub, providing workshops that bring the whole working group along with that. We have a lot of our working groups in the past have been a couple of people that are pretty into GitHub and pretty um, literate, and a number of people who are not yet. And we really try and kind of bring the whole working group into the same system as much as possible. Um, Nick can help in very concrete ways by with an analytical sprint that develops a workflow with and for you that you can then work with and adapt going forward, as well as providing access to NC's high performance analytical servers and help with documentation and archiving of the derived data sets. Um, there's a data sources table included in the RFP. Uh, this includes a sort of general description of the kind of data you think you want to include. We add that because we can often be helpful in connecting you with data sources that you might not be aware of. And then specific data sets that you have identified and what the status of them is. We've found this is really helpful in the proposal stage because uh, it it forces folks to go out and see what is there as opposed to what they imagine should be there. And and that often makes a huge difference in exactly what question you can answer and what your approach is going to be. We expect to fund 2 working groups this year. It is possible we will have more funding than that. We cross our fingers. We include meeting travel and lodging, which we pay directly. And in addition to that, participants receive a stipend for participation. That stipend is sort of based on the length of the meeting, but it's a just one amount for each person in the working group. We have some limited funding available in addition to that for open access publications, and we just talk about that when we get to the publication stage. Because those funding amounts are pretty set, we are not requiring a budget with the proposal. We're just funding for 3 working group meetings, up to 15 people. If you get to 3 working group meetings and you're like, oh, one meeting we would get so much more done if we had one more meeting, talk to us about that. But the basic plan is 3 meetings. We do not fund field research or collection of new data. We don't fund any funds to be spent at your institution. If we're funding open access charges, you just let us know where to send the check and we take care of that. And activities that primarily address the goals of another organization so that we are quite interested in sort of collaborative opportunities, ideas that meet both LTER goals and the goals of another organization. But if they don't fit LTER goals, then they're not going to make sense for us. And I will say the primary LTER goal is that we use our data. Our data gets used in fun new ways. Kind of covered this already. What's the submission process? Combine into a single PDF so that the project description with figures included, the references, the participant worksheet, the data worksheet, and the CVs into a single document and submit by email to proposals@lternet.edu. Yep. Key dates. Today, informational webinar. We will have the recording of that available. Proposal due date is September 16th. I will add, we are going to have an LTER. I should have included this. We are going to have an LTER community call. I believe it is May, I'm gonna 16th maybe, but it's on the LTER website. That's going to be an opportunity to just kick ideas around with folks in the network. Anyone is welcome to join that call. If it's something you think might be helpful, please do. And please spread the word to folks you think might be potential collaborators. We'll plan to announce the awards in November and begin the projects in January. What's the review process for LTR synthesis awards? The major criteria is scientific merit and novel approaches. The contribution to and use of LTR network science is a major factor. Beyond that, the reviewers ask, does the team include the needed expertise? Do you have who you need on the team to get this thing done? Occasionally, we have recommended additional people to join a team. If we see that the idea is great and it's perfect for LTER and we just think there's a little something missing. Broadly, does the team include a range of perspectives? So we don't like seeing a group that has been working together for many years already. The idea behind this program is that we sort of generate new collaborations. And of course, is the scope reasonable for 3 meetings and the work plan feasible? The review panel includes, we solicit a new review panel for every solicitation. It generally includes 4 LTER scientists and 4 non-LTER folks. The LTER folks, because they know exactly what LTER data looks like and what kinds of things are collected, and the non-LTER people to kind of keep us honest and bring new ideas into the mix. Final decision on funding is made by the LNO executive director in consultation with the chair of the LTER executive board. General proposal tips. One of the primary criteria, of course, is evaluating on the significance and the novelty of the ideas proposed. Question-driven proposals rather than descriptive proposals generally fare best. Include your rationale for the use of LTER data in the proposal. We know 2,000 words is short, but make sure it is clear why LTER data makes sense for this project idea. Try and give brief examples of major points that you're making. Include participants who are committed to the project. We definitely do look at the participant list. And describe at least, don't just ignore how you're going to stay on track, how you're going to be sure that all of the participants have a voice in the process. And definitely indicate the types of data that you expect to include and some assessment of their fitness for the purpose of the proposal. The figure here is just a little graphic representation of the way these projects often go, which is a sort of expansion of ideas in the first phase and a period of time where it's really hard to figure out which direction makes the most sense. and then a gradual consolidation down to um, a path forward and a solution. And we remind working groups frequently to be patient with that process. Um, Support for synthesis is sort of divided between the LTR Network Office, sits within the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis. So there are some aspects of the process that are handled entirely by the network office. Those include selecting the working group and the specific concrete support that you get from Nick for data analysis, uh, workshops on reproducible data skills and advice on synthesis proposals. NCEAS provides, as they do for all of the other working group programs that are part of NCEAS, excellent in-house and virtual meeting facilities. We have really good video conferencing. So if you need to bring a few folks in a hybrid setup, that works pretty darn smoothly at NCEAS, more smoothly than a lot of other places that I've been. The travel and logistical support runs through NCEAS, access to the analytical servers, both locally and remotely. And NCEAS also runs a series of workshops and cheat sheets on synthesis skills. And we've included those in the resources on the webpage, and you'll see them again, I'm sure. All right. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
So I have, I think, another year that I'll be associated with the LTER
Mhm,
program, like directly or being funded by it.
mhm.
And I was curious, as people move about to different postdocs or professorships, this all is kind of almost independent of that,
Yep,
correct?
exactly.
Okay.
That's one of the beauties of the funding coming entirely from us. It doesn't have to run through your institution. And it happens quite frequently that people are moving from one institution to another. Sometimes that means the process will slow down for a little while because they're a little distracted. Um, Sometimes it means that leadership of the group will like transfer to some other senior member of the group, either temporarily or permanently. Uh, but we can accommodate all of that. Uh, yeah, it actually is sort of a nice through line, I think, for people in that phase of their careers.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
I
I
have
have
a
a,
question.
oh,
Yeah.
you can go ahead.
Okay. Do do the network office and the decision makers for the final decision, are they considering past awards for synthesis groups and the LTERs that those proposers were associated with? Like, do you want not every proposal to go to people at McMurdo?
Uh, I wouldn't say at that scale. So if a great proposal comes in from a site that has had several proposals before, but it's a different group of people and a different topic, that's going to be fun. Um, I think we we don't want to see the same group of people over and over and over again.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
I know that the point of this is to use LTER data. My question is, do you want to see proposals that kind of make hypotheses based specifically or only on LTER data, or would it be okay to essentially like use other data sets in conjunction?
Absolutely. Absolutely okay to use other data sets. Strongly encourage that, in fact. Um, we only have 26 sites, and uh, if you're looking, for instance, at a particular kind of ecosystem or a particular topic within that, then you might only have 8 sites that have the kind of data that you need. And we are definitely looking at bringing LTR data together with other data. What we think LTR data provides that sometimes other data sets don't is a level of context associated with it. So one of the things that's sort of extraordinary about LTER sites is the number of disciplines, the number of investigators that are associated with that site, looking at all sorts of other things surrounding a particular data set. And so we sort of think that that can provide a context that often generates ideas that can be tested with other sets of data.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Nick's got a good point in the chat there. Anything, Nick, do you have anything to add?
On like the use of LTR data a bit.
Broadly, just
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, obviously, the Spark groups are great, like really nice for firming up and ideas. But I think one of the things that I really like about the full working group model is that in many ways, like the third meeting, start of year two, you sort of outgrow your original question, like either because it's answered or because like the initial collection of data has revealed like some unexpected pattern or like yeah, you've just solved it and you're like, okay, good, that we got the nature pub, now we can go do the next thing. And so a lot of groups, even those that propose primarily LTR data at the start, like even with as much data as we have, like you guys will be so good at working together and so skilled on your question and in your domain that you will eventually outpace even what we have. And so there will be like super, super common for people to reach out to other research networks. Another thing that I've seen a lot of groups do is when you start presenting at like professional conferences, you'll have somebody come up to you after your talk or at the poster session and say like, whoa, like you're doing river chemistry stuff? Like I have 30 years from this Australian river that's just in a folder in my garage. And you're like, sick. I would absolutely love to have that. And so I think like you guys will find internally and like in the field, you gain momentum as time goes on. And so the like the pie chart of where your data came from will totally evolve.
yeah,
And
yeah, agreed. Um, many working groups, by the time they get to that third meeting, just they have so many more questions than they started with. And we see whole research threads that we can tie back to a working group that was funded 20 years ago. Um, it's super fun to have that long view. All right.
I have another quick question.
Yeah.
So in other funded synthesis group proposals, there have been a dedicated information manager on the 15-person team. Is the idea, Nick, for you to be that person on every one of these proposals, or are you a like separate person in the ether helping out behind this? Like what's the vibe there?
yeah, totally. I think partly my role, like I wear many hats depending upon what works for each group. But I would say first off, like you definitely want your own technical person within your team, not me. Um, Happy as I would be to join your group, it's good to have your own sort of toolkit person with you. Um, Usually that person is like my primary point of contact. So if the rest of the group is like, GitHub's not really my jam, and I don't ever really want it to be. Most people eventually come around and eat their vegetables, but at the start, totally common to say, I don't want to engage with this. I work really tightly with that technical person to say, like, okay, like, what sort of guidance is going to work for your team? Like, are you going to live in potentially like very mechanistic questions about like, are you going to live in R? Are you going to live in the Google Drive or what have you? But then with some groups, I just always live at this like guidance level, like very soft touches, corner of the Zoom room. Like, oh, by the way, have you thought about analysis X? Have you thought about harmonizing your data in this way? And then with other groups, like I am a resource. And so I think some people are a little skittish to make use of me, and others are like eventually become like more and more stoked. And so for some groups, I've written like maybe the bulk of their code base. Is like something that I personally write with their guidance. Um, yeah, and then I try to avoid it because I think it's a little risky, but sometimes I do just Zamboni code where somebody says like, okay, but yeah, so like the Zamboni machine like cleans up ice on an ice rink. Somebody will be like, hey, I wrote this code that does this. Can you make sure that it does what I think it does and that it's as reproducible as possible? I'm happy to do that. The caveat there is I don't want you to sort of depend upon the Zamboni service. It's nice when your first stab is as reproducible as possible. So a little rambly, but yeah, you'll have your own technical person, and then I exist as guide and data dog's body for you after that.
Cool. Thank you.
So I will add that so many people in ecology have learned their data tools working individually. And one of the huge huge bits of value add that Nick brings to that is that Nick works continuously with working groups where people have to work together on their code. And so their advice is like new and instrumental and super important for working groups to actually function as a team. So that and the reproducibility piece, like many people, they learned R or they learned Python and they sort of bumble through, and maybe they haven't had to go back and rerun their pieces of code, or maybe they've just accepted that they're going to have to spend a huge amount of time sorting it out when they do. Because Nick's entire job is supporting working groups. And what we really, really would like to have happen coming out of working groups, I wish it happened more often than it did, is that you take the time to assemble all of this data now, and 5 years from now, it's LTER. There are gonna be 5 more years of data. You would like to be able to just rerun that analysis and add that new data in and have a new paper and a new set of insights coming out of that. And Nick is super helpful in writing code that comes pretty close to being able to do that. I mean, I expect there still are going to be some tweaks down the road, um, but that's kind of the piece that where Nick adds something that you won't get many other places. Right.
I have a really quick question. How many proposal submissions do you usually get on one of these calls?
Boy, it ranges a lot. In the early years, we got about 24, 25. The last time we ran a full proposal competition, I think we got 8, but that was sort of in the middle of COVID. And so, yeah, that's the range.
Oh, thanks.
Um, it's a little better than NSF average, but not a lot. But they're a whole lot easier to write. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I look forward to seeing what sorts of ideas you come up with. And I would encourage you, my email signature has an opportunity to schedule office time with me, schedule a phone call. And if you've got additional questions or want to just kind of kick an idea around a little bit or run it by me, I'm happy to do that. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.